Welcome back to another episode of NFT Catcher Podcast. We'd like to remind everybody that nothing on the show is meant as financial advice, and to please do your own research. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Now the subject is NFTs.
They're known as non-fungible tokens, or NFTs.
NFTs are exploding in popularity.
This is a technology that will forever change the way people interact.
So it is happening whether you understand it and like it or not.
This phenomenon is moving. The digital.
You have now joined Jenny from the blockchain and Michael Keene on the NFT Catcher Podcast.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NFT Catcher Podcast with me, Jenny from the blockchain, and my co-host, Michael Keene. Today's interview, we have special guest, Dr. Nicole LePera, who is a very popular holistic psychologist with quite the online audience. She's got 1 million followers on Twitter, 7 mil on IG, and she's the author of a few different books, How to Do the Work, How to Meet Yourself. I'm holding them up here. I got 2 of her books, and her newest book, How to Be the Love You Seek. She's also into NFTs, which is why we're having her on the pod today, because we're just pumped that she's also into NFTs. Like, that's so exciting. Got to talk about that for sure. We're going to talk about a good mix of psychology and NFTs today. So, Dr. Nicole LePera, welcome to the show.
Thank you both for having me. I'm truly honored to be here.
Yes. And you know what? I do want to start by, I guess, talking about first how I found out about you, and then maybe how you know us, because you actually said you know of us, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, I remember seeing K Money reply to one of your tweets. Your tweets, I always used to see your tweets. And then he replied to something that you had tweeted about. And then I think you said like, oh, I listened to your interview, or I saw that you were on the NFT Catcher Pod, something like that. And I was like, what? She knows about us? And yeah, I was pretty mind blown after that. And then, yeah, that was really cool. That was probably maybe almost 2 years ago or something. That was quite a while ago. But yeah, how did you find out about us? And then also, how did you get into NFTs?
I think similar time frame several years ago when NFTs were quite the talk in all the positive, negative ways. I got really interested in what it was about. And ultimately, I saw so much promise in terms of the technology. And then I think I found the way the two of you so beautifully are advocates. I was listening and kind of bopping to your even intro here, all the little sound clips and sound bites. So I kind of found your work by way of just my own personal interest. I truly believe NFTs are going to be the future in a lot of ways, giving so many people paths to ownership. So much of my own even journey, I think, has mapped along with coming out of a structured system, finding my way, fumbling in the beginning, my own way through building, my own now personal membership platform and everything that comes along with that. So I'm a big advocate. I'm a personal believer. I'm here for the future and all of, I think, the exciting possibilities that it offers, again, aligned with my work, the empowerment to the individual.
That's amazing. And so do you still collect NFTs, or are you just like, and what have you collected in the past that you were like really into?
Yes, I'm still very much an avid believer, collector of all things NFT. I'm a big believer. Gary V's project, V Friends. I think he's just such an incredible creator, leader. So I have a bunch of ownership in him. Same thing with Pudgy Penguins and Luca and Doodles. And, I think they're great. I think my coolest ownership is to date a CryptoPunk. I got it at the beginning of things. And I think just such a cool thing. I have a print sitting in my kitchen.
That's
her.
Crazy. You're a punk. Did you go to Beeple Sing in Charleston? You probably didn't go to that, did you?
No, I did not go to that. Okay. But I've been watching along and watching all of the new prints that he's doing and everything that's coming along with that. So yeah, I'm a continued believer. I know where the market is now, and in terms of I'm not going anywhere. The projects that I typically invest in are, long-term projects that have creators and leaders that I love their vision and where they're going for the future. So.
Any Bored Apes?
Possibly.
Oh, possibly. She's got a secret wallet. Secret wallet exposed.
I possibly do. That's funny. I was wondering if that one was going to come up.
Yeah, Michael had his Bored Ape for the longest time, and yeah, it was our cover photo and everything. He's rocking his Mutant now as our album cover, but yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. I know Jenny loves to talk about that. She loves to talk about that.
Sometimes I bring up the fact that she sold it.
Sometimes. It's every episode now.
Because you said you're going to hold it forever, and then you abandoned me and you sold it. So
no, what I said was I would love to hold it forever, but if I ever needed the money and it was time, I was going to have to sell it.
That's fair.
And we
need
it for the family. It was time. It was going down. It was the right thing to do. Thank you for rubbing salt in the wound, but
it's okay. He always gets me back. Okay, so it's not like it's not a one-sided bullying thing here. Okay, so also I was gonna bring up that so you make a lot of skit videos, which I only have Twitter, so I don't know you have like other social platforms, but I'm only on Twitter, so I see your videos on Twitter, and you make skit videos sometimes, which I like. I enjoy them; they're really good. And in one of them, I was watching one, and I was like, wait a minute, she's wearing a Doodles camp sweatshirt. And I was like, what? This is crazy. So did you go to the Doodles camp event?
No, I just have a lot of gear from, you'll probably see if you stay tuned to future videos. I just got a box with a couple of the Pudgy Penguins little stuffies that they have. So I don't know if you know, I do the videos with my partner. Her name is Jenna, and she has a penguin that makes an appearance. So we might be subbing it out for a Pudgy to come. So I always think it's fun when we can build in those, whether I'm wearing it or having it as a prop, if you will.
A little Easter egg for the NFT crowd. Yes. Like, wait a minute, I recognize those. Or even, I guess, for anybody, because now Pudgy Penguins is kind of worldwide. Everyone's, you can just go to Walmart, recognize the Pudgy Penguins. Yeah. Luke is doing pretty great things over there. Michael, we got to get ourselves some Pudgy Penguins.
Yeah, the actual Pudgy Penguins, the OGs that are up over 5 weeks now. Maybe, one day soon. That would be nice. I wish we had them right before Luca bought the project.
Right.
Dr. Nicole, what's funny, we had Luca on, and the other projects you mentioned, we had Julian from Doodles on. What was the other one you mentioned? We had someone else on. Friends. Well, Gary V. We've done 2 5 minutes with him. We've gotten 2 5 minutes on the podcast with him, which is nice. And Jenny's a moderator at both VCons so far. I don't know if you knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hyping me
up
in
there too.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I'm your biggest fan. You know that.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah. And I always have to go on my own ticket. Can't get media passes. Andy and I can't get backstage. We're running around.
Well, I got you backstage
waiting in
times,
lines. You did. No, we all got backstage because we were going for the interview.
Oh, that's right.
Then I stayed there you got me back there. No.
Me trying to take the credit.
Yeah, I know.
Damn, okay.
Very nice, very nice. But yeah, it's pretty funny. The ones you mentioned are all projects that we're also involved in and talk to those people. Great people. Luca especially was an awesome interview. He's really brilliant.
Do you go to any NFT events ever?
I haven't gone to really many events really in general. My whole life feels like it's quite virtual these days.
Yeah. A lot of
online stuff. Always a possibility in my mind. The question is, do I want to fly? What time is the event?
Right.
Those things to consider.
You should go to the last VCon. Apparently there's only one more. Well, I don't know if he's going to extend it, but it's like he had promised 3 years. We're coming up on the 3rd next year.
It'll be interesting to say, what happens beyond that.
Art Basil's the one to go to.
Yes. I've been to the area. I was in Miami.
We love
Art
Basel.
Yeah, I visited, I think, right before or after it happened one year, and I was so bummed. I just missed it. I was like, shh.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much all the NFT questions. There is not too much NFT stuff. But I wanted to move on to your books. So, I have How to Meet Yourself, How to Do the Work. I haven't read How to Meet Yourself yet, but I did read How to Do the Work, which I actually love reading psychology books and self-help, personal development. I majored in psychology, so it's just very interesting to me. And I like that you brand yourself as the holistic psychologist. What is the meaning behind you kind of, calling yourself the holistic psychologist?
Well, thank you for, of course, supporting my books, my work. I really do appreciate it. For me, even the name holistic, working holistically, was a big shift from how I was trained, clinically, traditionally. A lot of it was focused on talk therapy, the mind, the power of the mind, change the way you think, ultimately change the way you feel, change the way you act. And I found myself not only on the patient side of the couch suffering from anxiety for as long as I can remember, since I was a very little girl, though I was several years into a quite successful private practice where I was seeing some of my clients for years. I had been working with them, and I started to feel just as disempowered as many of the clients that were coming into my office week after week. And I can continue to hear a complaint of, I have all of this insight, all of this awareness. Is this really working? Because I'm still stuck. I'm not able to create change. I'm not able to relieve my symptoms. I'm not able to break my dysfunctional habits or whatever it was that brought that person in. So for me, I sought to understand, well, what is going on? How can I, think I have all of these tools and have this integrative model, yet I'm not feeling relief from my own anxiety and my clients aren't really feeling relief. So I think being the lifelong learner that I still very much am, I dove into research and sought to really understand what the missing piece was. And the missing piece, in my opinion, is the body. And so for me, what holistic now has come to mean is really honoring, of course, the very powerful mind that we all have, the brain, the computer, if you will, though also making sure that we're paying attention to our body, to our nervous system, to our lifestyle habits. And that's ultimately allowed me to create incredible transformation in my own relationship with anxiety. And now, as I begin to speak about this topic and share these tools on Instagram, on social media for free, and of course, within my books and in my membership, hearing from other people that too was the bridge between all of the insight that many people have and actually creating the action steps of change.
What are some of the body things, specifically? I mean, probably nutrition is a huge one, right? Like what we put into our body. And yeah, I'm personally, I've been a vegan since I was 15, and I've always kind of thought about that of health and how important that is, because it really does change how you feel. And if you're feeling different, then you're going to be acting different. And, it's just a whole cycle. But yeah, what are some things that people, I don't know, typically maybe don't think of, or they take for granted, or it's just a routine, habitual thing that they're doing that's maybe just causing them a lot of stress?
Well, even hearing you kind of say, well, nutrition, right? So off the cuff, no brainer, of course, the way the food you're putting in. And that is, not as assumed as a, factor in health, not in the clinical field, the psychology field. Never once was I asked by a clinician. Never once was I urged by a supervisor when I was training or within my school program to ever even talk about nutrition and what my clients were putting in their body. And I know in the medical field, obviously it's a different branch, though very much so, never really is nutrition. So saying that to say, I mean, nutrition is incredibly important. Not only does it fuel our nervous system, our brain, our functioning, a lot of the food that many of us are eating is quite stressful for the body because it's really inflammatory and it causes damage to our gut. And for a very long time, again, we thought it was in our brain where the neurotransmitters, probably words that maybe some of you have heard, like the serotonin that makes us feel good, the dopamine that makes us feel good. We, for decades, thought that was produced, manufactured, and, functioned only within our brain. And now we know that our gut plays an incredible role in the production of those neurotransmitters and also in its communication with our brain. Just as much as our brain is sending all of those messages down to our body is sending all of those messages up to our brain. So if we're eating foods that's stressing our body, that's causing damage or inflammation and an immune system response, then the messages that our brain is getting, some of us 24 hours a day, is that my body is under stress. And outside of nutrition, there's sleep. I think very few of us as adults are sleeping or resting throughout our day. We very much have a culture of urgency, of, always being on 24/7. I mean, some of us even work the night shift, really disrupting our circadian rhythms and the natural process at night, where many of us need at least 8 hours to sleep restoratively. If we're getting in bed, a lot of us struggle to fall asleep, struggle to stay asleep. Outside of sleep at night, it's very natural for our body to need rest, moments where we're not going 24 hours a day during the daytime. And then, of course, we also need movement. So many of us, I think, as even life becomes more virtual, I even see this in my own life. It's very infrequent that movement, we can just sit on our couch, sit on our computer all day long. So those are, I think, core pillars of wellness in the body that, might seem really simple, might not even be a component of any treatment, whether it's emotional, psychological, or physical, though foundationally, when you get your sleep in order, when you're sleeping and resting throughout the day, when you're moving your body and releasing all of the stressful tension that so many of us are carrying, and when you're eating nutrient-dense foods as opposed to inflammatory foods, you can really create wellness psychologically and physically.
Amazing. Michael, I got to loop you in here.
Yeah, loop me in for sure. That is two really just awesome stuff, and awesome to hear you talk about it. And I want to circle back to the nutrition part, because one thing that you sounded really passionate about, and it's something that I've always thought and said the same thing. Why do you think nutrition is not mentioned in psychology, in medical? Why is not like the number one thing? Doctors like, start eating blueberries, bud. I don't know, right?
Yeah,
why do you think?
Yeah,
go ahead, Jenny, but you can add.
No, I was just gonna say, I saw some thing on Twitter where it was like, doctors only get like 1 hour course on nutrition or something. Like, they barely get educated on nutrition, and yeah, they're just taught to like prescribe medication because it's like everything's run by the pharmaceutical companies and it's all about money. But
I think a lot of it, to speak to that point, goes to the training, whether you're in the psychological world coming through clinical programs, or the medical world coming through medical school. You're not taught. You're not really taught. You're taught more of a symptom management model, right? Identify the symptoms, categorize it as whatever disease, or diagnosis that it may or may not be, and then treat the symptom, often just putting a Band-Aid on to try and mitigate, right? Lessen the mood, enhance the mood, or whatever it is, subside the physical symptoms. And we're not really taught in the field to understand the underlying driver of the symptoms themselves. And when we do understand that, then we can, open the door to, oh, okay, well, it's the human body interacting, with these lifestyle choices that we're making. And there was even a big shift in science in general, if we want to throw a big umbrella up there. For decades, we were under medical and psychological was under a model that was known as the genetic determinist model, or genetic determinism, which really simply means your genes, right? This biology, this DNA that you're given from the two biological parents that you're, born to, can control everything. You have no say. It's inevitable, whatever disease you're going to get or how well you'll be in any direction. And the field shifted, medicine, that is quite globally, and it now understands, of course, genetics are playing part of the role, though so is the environment. And now we very much have what's called an epigenetic model, which is understanding, again, that genes are part of the story, though the lifestyle choices, the stress in the environment, that is going to contribute to what genes are expressed, whether you'll get that disease or what genes aren't expressed. So saying that to again say it really comes back to the training. And to speak to your point, in medical schools, from my knowledge of people I know that went to medical school, they get very limited discussion of these underlying factors, these lifestyle choices, which include nutrition and sleep and just general standard wellness. So of course they don't think, and when they begin their own practice, they take that same Band-Aid symptom management approach. And even just speaking from my own clinical training program, I'm hearing that it's beginning to shift now more recently. That when I was in school, decade plus ago, 2 decades ago, there was no talk of the body at all. It was not even a point of conversation. So of course there was no conversation around body care like nutrition and sleep and movement. So then, you become a clinician, you hang your shingle, and you're not going to even know to make that a part of your treatment plan or individual discussion with the clients that you're working with.
It's crazy. It's so backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's so backwards. I mean, it should all start there for sure.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And from what I hear, when I first started to share online, having success personally with this holistic model, finally beginning to, get control of my anxiety, having a possibility of not just having this diagnosis for the rest of my life with only right, these two options, therapy or medicine, to manage it, there was, if I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit fearful of what the field would think of, me beginning to speak about these other ways to create wellness. I was also a little bit afraid of being like a person. One of the big things that we're taught in my program, at least, is to just focus on the client. Don't bring any of your experience, don't be an individual in the room. And walking through that fear and that discomfort, I was really validated on the other side of it, because I met a ton of individuals and clinicians themselves who were coming to the same awareness, beginning to, update their practices to work more holistically. And we're seeing the same results that I was seeing, which is finally the possibility of having a conversation that we don't have to just have this forever. We can actually create changes through small lifestyle choices each and every day, and can actually learn how to navigate or manage our symptoms in a different way.
Yeah, there's a lot more information out there now than there used to be for people. We had the food pyramid growing up. That's what they showed us in school, right? Bread was at the bottom. Eat the most bread. That was the biggest part of your diet.
Yeah, why did we have to eat so much bread? Like,
I was like, keep it. They sell wheat.
Just
there
eat
was like,
the bread.
There were wheat farmers that had to sell their wheat. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
crazy.
it is really serious when you think about even the macro messaging that society has been given. I mean, even some things that we were very directly taught, aspartame and things like that were healthy for you. And now all of with technology and the ability to create all these different processes to make food and things like that, there also is the side of it of, some of it isn't natural and it isn't actually safe to be consumed. And I can remember very directly, campaigns, commercials telling, my mom in particular, that generation was very impacted by this idea of the lowest of fat as possible, which meant a lot of this processed, sugar. And ultimately now we know decades later that those are the foods that can cause that inflammatory response and can lead to physical and emotional breakdown over time. And I actually saw that in my mom's lived experience herself.
Totally. And worse is, sorry, I know you're coming in, Jenny,
No.
but worse is that in our country, where the four of us live, including Andy, obviously, we're leading the way selling that horrible stuff. Other countries don't have it. Most of the stuff is banned in developed countries around the world. Yeah.
And then when you see it, it's really sad when you begin to watch. I remember traveling, abroad as I was younger, and I was in a foreign country, and then I'd see a McDonald's on the corner. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see that. And I think that there are now studies that are showing, as the more Americanized food begins to move in, not only is it attractive, I think, because it's cheaper, because, it's tasty and it's fast. And I think that the community in the location gravitates toward it, though I do think research is now beginning to show that it's starting to increase the same diseases that we're struggling with over here.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that.
Yeah, I was literally just in Aruba, and there was like McDonald's, like Taco Bell. I was like, what? Like, this is an island. Why are there I'm like, why is there all this fast food here? It was so weird. It was definitely like, oh damn, this is crazy. But what was I gonna say? Oh no, I lost my train of thought. It's okay.
You'll get it back. You'll get it back. Dr. Nicole, let's talk about that. You're from Philly.
I'm from Philly, born and raised.
Born and raised. I see you went to high school outside of Philadelphia. I don't know if you say it, whatever. I did find that I looked. I wanted to see. Is she from? Andy and I are from the Northeast.
Same.
I was
same.
North. Oh, are you really? I was
Oxford
from
Circle.
I was Oxford Circle. I grew up in the shadow of Fells, like Summerdale and Devereaux, Tarkin Playground.
Oh, Tarkin. I used to be there a ton.
No way.
Yeah, we're there. Yeah.
And you're a couple years younger. You're a couple. Yeah, I know every store up and down Castor Avenue. That's hilarious. We grew up right in the same neighborhood. Amazing.
Yeah, born and raised there. And then, when high school time came, I was shipped out, as I say. My family, I was academically
what I thought. I was like,
doing well. Okay. So my one cousin went to this high school in the suburbs. So they had their eye on that. They, of course, wanted me to get into the college that high school would lead me to. And I fought it. I hated it. My whole first freshman year, all I wanted to do was hang out with my Philly friends. And then I finally settled in to my parents' pleasure sophomore year.
Okay.
But though I lived in Philadelphia up until I was a sophomore in college. So I went away for my sophomore year, I left my Philly home and I came home for Thanksgiving with new directions. They had sold their house and they too then moved out to the suburbs. So I was Philly born and bred for 19 years.
That's crazy. Yeah, I lived on Langdon Street till I went to college in 1997. And I went to Northeast High School. I was 3 generations Northeast High School. I live near Miami now. So 4th generation will not be Northeast, but Andy went to Central. You know, you guys both shipped out apparently. I went to the local high school, but that's awesome. That's really cool. I saw you were from Philly and I saw where you went to high school. So I was like, oh, she's like, from the suburbs or whatever, but we're literally, you said Oxford Circle. I can't believe you said that's exactly.
I mean,
where I'm
I
from.
Langdon Street.
That's amazing.
I'm familiar with that. And then I moved back. So I went to school in upstate New York. Upstate life wasn't for me. It was beautiful. It was cold. I wanted to.
I've actually spent a lot of time in the city you went to college. I don't know if you're mentioning that either. You can or can't, but I spent a lot of time. Yeah. My mother-in-law lives there, so we go there every summer.
Beautiful. Summer's a great time to go. Winter, not so much.
It's the only time to go. It's the only time to go.
It's gardening. Now I live in the desert of Arizona. Right. A large reason was because of the trauma of
there's like 3 nice months in Ithaca.
Serious. And they trick you because they had me up. I played softball, so they had me up for a weekend. I think it was in like August or September. I'm like, this is the most beautiful place in the world.
Exactly. It's a spring day in the middle of the summer. It's like perfect.
And then they trick you, and then you discover that the rest of the year. But then I lived in New York City for almost a decade, and then I moved back home and I lived in Center City. So when I moved back to Center City, it was a completely different Center City than when we grew up. And it was there was life, there was restaurants, there was stuff, as I call it. And I think I was there for was I there for 3-4 years, 5 years before then I moved out west of the sunshine. And here I am.
That's awesome. Nice. Yeah, I've been down here for about 18 years now, down in sunny South Florida.
I wonder if you guys have ever run into each other.
Like at Tarkin Playground, we're probably at Tarkin, but you were like, so you graduated. I graduated high school in 97. You were a couple years after that.
I just graduated high school in 2000. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we were, I mean, I was at Tarkin all the time from when I was like 5 till 17.
Funny. We very well could have.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
It was all meant to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love particularly when
really funny. Yeah.
Philly folk, and it's always my one partner. I don't notice that I have an accent. I can barely tell when other people do.
Right.
One partner's always
people
like,
make
I'm
fun
from Philly. I'm like, hey, you know the accent? I'm like, no, they sound normal to me.
One of the questions I asked people, someone a couple of weeks ago, was, what's your favorite museum? And I got a comment on Twitter. It's pronounced museum. They were like joking, but they were like, what's a museum? Museum.
Museum.
Go to the movie theater. What's the problem?
You're right.
What's the problem?
I can definitely tell you have an accent.
Yeah.
And actually, ironically, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. So I guess we kind of got both ties there. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, How to Do the Work was a lot about like your inner child and kind of like reparenting yourself. And I don't have any children. Michael has some kids, Andy has some kids. But man, reading your book made me just realize like, oh my God, like when I'm a parent, like I don't want to fuck up my kids, but it's also kind of inevitable, right? Because it's like, no kid can make it through childhood unscathed, right? Like there's always, you're not perfect. Your kid's not going to be perfect. But I was wondering, what are some common things that parents do that maybe they don't realize are bad patterns that they should be breaking? Because that's how to do the work. Recognize your patterns, heal from your past, create yourself.
I think an important place to start too is to acknowledge, because I myself don't have children though. Even without children, I mean, we are so, as adults, individuals, impacted by what happened in our childhood. And for me, a big turning point was when I came to realize, even coming through a clinical psychology program, right, where you think there's like a lot of focus on emotions, because I had all my physical needs met really consistently. My mom was home and care of the house and care of me and my 2 older siblings. So for decades of time while I was working with clients who, checked the boxes of what we had been taught, a more traditional definition of trauma, right? They had the abuse, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, or the physical neglect where there was no one present, or the active substance use happening in the home. When I look back and I didn't necessarily have any of that happening, I for very many years, didn't think that anything had happened, that I didn't have or carry any of the impact of my early childhood until I really dove into understanding our emotional worlds and how important emotional connection and attunement is, in addition, of course, to having our physical needs met, of course. So what I came to realize is while I had two caregivers present, both of my caregivers, based on their own childhood experiences, trauma that both of them had carried and the ways that they had compensated, they were so detached from themselves emotionally and ultimately then from us, their children, emotionally, that I was carrying the same habitual patterns of detachment that I saw in them because I wasn't physiologically equipped to deal with stressful emotions. Learning that emotions happen in our body. They're not something that you could just think your way through. So even using the anxiety I continue to reference that I struggled with, it's not just stop thinking anxious thoughts and you cure yourself of anxiety. It's anxiety lives in the body. So you have to include your body on that journey. And the reason why I, for so long, was, overwhelmed with my anxiety, unable to control it, and then just disconnected from it, just like my parents did, was because I didn't have the tools to navigate the stressful experience of emotion, of anxiety in my own body. So now apply that to, we have children, we become adults ourselves, we choose to have children, even the most well-meaning of parents, many of which who look back on their own childhoods and affirm, I'm not going to do that to my children, are going to model or going to impact their children by what they actually can or know how to do in terms of their own ability to emotionally attune to themselves, to navigate their own emotions. So, right, if you're me and I decided to have children before, of course, I went on this healing journey, I would have probably been, even if I would have come to know, it was lonely without that emotional connection in my home. And, I wasn't able to have fulfilling relationships as a result. I could have affirmed, I'm not going to do that to my children. Though if I can't connect with my own emotions and I can't therefore then attune to my child's emotions, no matter how much I want to do better, I'm going to be impacted by the tools and the resources and what I ultimately model. So, there's many different ways. I think emotions are a big category that many of us as adults struggle to navigate our own emotional world. So then we struggle to help our children. We might overcompensate by always trying to fix, right, our child's emotions, or being the helicopter parent where we almost try to buffer our child from having anything stressful happen to them at all. That sort of overstepping of boundaries and, not creating the natural experience that there are going to be stressful experiences in our child's life. It's not that we can buffer them through all of it into adulthood. We want to teach them how to navigate it. So I think that sort of boundary blurring, which often happens for a very well-intentioned reason, can lead to a child who, right, can't navigate their own emotional worlds. I think emotional disconnection, the example I use for myself, parents who are just too maybe distracted by work because there's a lot of financial insecurity or financial obligations that they have to tend to. Again, maybe they're overwhelmed by their own childhood experiences. And when they experience their child having an emotion, it just is too much for them. So they distract, they dissociate, right? They check out entirely, not even knowing that they're doing it half the time. So when I think about concepts like reparenting, I really want to expand the possibility, because the reality of it is we all have habits that we've carried from childhood, even if we don't have children that we're in active relation to. The reality of it is for many of us, our own habits that we're, repeating day in and day out are probably a remnant of that childhood experience and might not be serving our physical or our emotional needs in adulthood.
I'm really glad to hear you. I was good. Well, real quick, I'm really glad to hear you talk about all that, because when I scrolled through your Instagram, the one post that I did capture that really stuck with me and I kept thinking about was another form of generational wealth is parents who can regulate their emotions. And I was going to ask you to expound on that, because that was just, I have a 7 and 2 6-year-olds. So I think we think about that all the time.
Yeah. And again, I think the, parents who are seemingly right, loving and calm 1 minute and then erupt, fly off the handle, are screaming and yelling another minute. I can make a case that it's not because this is a bad parent, even if they might say and do mean things in that moment, as I say and do mean things quite often. My new book really dives into the nervous system and how that kind of eruption, I actually call it eruptor mode, is a reflection of us feeling threatened, us feeling overwhelmed. So of course it's not condoning that behavior, but my hope is that it's, extending a little compassion to those of us who, do fly off the handle, can't navigate our emotions in those pivotal moments, and therefore are doing things that can be directly harmful. And the same thing with those kind of distracted moments, right? Where I'm scrolling, I can't attend to my child, or like my mom, I'm there physically, but I'm a million miles away. Really understanding that those, are a reflection of the parent themselves, not feeling safe, not feeling grounded and responsive in their body. So absolutely then not able to attune to someone else's feelings. It's not a fault per se, though it's just a habit that, of course, then we intro again the conversation of the body. There are beautiful tools that we can learn to regulate and to then be that model, which I very much think is a form of generational wealth, to be a parent who doesn't shy away from emotions. I very much came from a family who we didn't talk about hard things. When eruptions would happen, or when my mom would give the silent treatment, because that's how she navigated her upsetting emotions, there would just be one day where it was seemingly back to normal and nothing was ever talked about because they didn't have the tools to talk about it. So to become a parent, right, who goes on their own journey, first identifying that they might have these habits that are reflective of their own dysregulation, then of course making the daily commitment, like we talked about earlier, to include their bodies and care for their bodies, and learning how to tend to their own emotions will translate to being a more attuned caregiver, to modeling, right? Not just to saying, oh, don't scream and yell to your child. That's, inappropriate, to showing them in your own action how to navigate upsetting and uncomfortable emotions without screaming and yelling. And in my opinion, because even these conversations, I'm here on an NFT podcast, right, talking about these things, I'm so hopeful for all of the future generations, for those of us who choose directly to have children, or just those of us who are continuing to shape and shift the world around us. Because the more grounded and present and responsive I think we all become, the more we are absolutely impacting everyone that we interact with, especially the children that we're raising.
I appreciate all that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny because at the last VCon, Michael, I don't know if you remember this, but Gary Vee was saying, like, everyone always blames their parents, but how about the grandparents? Like, blame your grandparents because they raised your parents. And
right.
and I think it's also having, I don't know, because I think about, so my dad, like, my parents split when I was 2, and I was raised by my mom, and I always kind of had a hard time, like, connecting with him, and I would only see him every couple of years, so it was just hard. But one time he was sharing, like, stories from his childhood, and I was like, oh my God, like, it made me just kind of realize, like, that he was a person that also went through stuff as a kid, and it gave me so much more, like, I don't know, I was able to, like, empathize with him and kind of just relate and realize, like, he's a person that, everyone is just a person that had kids. It's like, they're not perfect. You kind of sometimes put your parents on these pedestals. Like, they're my parents. They're supposed to be this way. They're supposed to be that way. A mom's supposed to be this. A dad's supposed to be this. But it's like, yeah, you have to realize, like, they're people just like you, and they just have children, and, and nobody's perfect, and everyone's just navigating their way through life and, trying to do their best. So
that's a really beautiful, empowering shift, though. Again, in childhood, when we don't have that beautiful maturity, like, you're like, oh, I zoomed out, I saw this, parent that I might have idealized, as we all do in childhood as an individual, right? With parents themselves, right? That's a gorgeous kind of mature ability that we develop over time. The problem is, in childhood, when we don't have that ability, we're not able to zoom out and see all of the different reasons why our parents are showing up or not showing up in whatever way that they are or aren't. And as a child, because we're always trying to make sense of what's happening in the world around us, unfortunately, we will assign blame to ourselves. We're the reason why our parents got divorced. We're the reason why mom or dad is screaming and yelling. We're the reason why they're a million miles away and they're not interested in what's happening for me. And that's when many of us begin to not only adapt in our behavior. Okay, well, we're so attuned. We try to then limit the things that will upset them or cause those moments of disconnection. And we try to, continue whatever version of connection is available to us. And at the same time, we're forming and ingraining some deep rooted beliefs about ourselves. And then flash forward into adulthood, many of the habits that so many of us are repeating daily and how we care for our physical or emotional self are reflective still of that deep belief that something's unlovable about me, something's unworthy about me, something caused someone to leave me, right? And we continue then to expect the same in our relationships. And as I talk about in How to Be the Love You Seek, we continue to engage or embody the same conditioning that at one point kept us safe, right? If I only show for me, it was achievement. That was one of the ways my mom was the most present when she was cheering me on athletically or academically, right? So for me, I became someone who had no limits and boundaries. I just wanted to achieve, to keep those around me happy. I tried to be a partner who had no needs, right? Because emotionally, I never knew how to show needs. I didn't have any of that experience. So I talk about all of these, what I call conditioned selves, or these ways we've learned to show up. Other people listening, it might be a caretaker or a caregiver, right? In childhood, there was some connection that you got by maybe caring for your siblings' needs, maybe by caring for your parents' needs, whatever they might be, squashing your own needs down. And now you become the adult that's who you are in your relationship. So it really is so impactful, not only in terms of the habits that we've been modeled, like we just discussed, though, these deep beliefs, because we do feel we were the cause of whatever it is that happened, even though that's the farthest thing from accurate, of course. And this is how healing can occur, developing the ability to zoom out as an adult to feel all of the different ways that we feel about whatever happened or didn't happen, right? Allowing ourselves to have that emotional experience, though maybe over time to also have a more compassionate one. Okay, well, this is why this person was unavailable in this way, right? And I can understand that because I've seen and lived, for many of us, decades of the byproduct of my conditioning, the ways in which I wasn't showing up authentically or in care of myself.
That's beautiful. And yeah, thank you for sharing. And all of your wisdom has been just amazing. And I hope everyone really appreciates this episode. I have one more question. We'll see if Michael has any last questions, and then we'll go into our gas war segment and finish off the episode. But so, okay, the impact of your childhood on your current relationships. So I'm in a relationship right now. It's fresh, less than a year, right? And it's like, we're still getting to know each other. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what kind of questions should I be asking? Like, what do I want to know about my partner's childhood to kind of help me, I don't know, understand them better and where they're coming from and how it affects our relationship?
That's beautiful. I love that you're even kind of thinking in that direction, because understanding, having these points of conversation where we do reflect back. I think a lot of us, for whatever reason, avoid that in relationships, maybe because, again, we don't want to think back and share what it was that happened to us. I hear quite often, well, I'm an adult now. It's gone, though it isn't. I mean, we just spent a lot of time talking about all of the ways that it's probably still evident, especially in our relationships, because like I shared, that's the place where we begin to modify ourselves. Then, of course, to then extend that question, be curious about someone else's past experience, as difficult as it might be to maybe share of ourselves and hear where someone else came from, especially someone we're developing care and love for. It's so incredibly important. And I think one of the important conversations that can be had is around conflict, because conflict is one of the areas that I think very few of us were modeled responsive, mature ways to navigate, especially those heated moments, of conflict, of disagreement, of when you're at odds. Again, you might be like my family. It's not really talked about. Conflict was never, a point of conversation, or maybe there was just so much explosive moments of conflict that it felt out of control and was traumatizing in and of itself, for how overwhelming the emotions were. So it can be really helpful not only to ask of people, potential partners, but to explore ourselves. What is our relationship with conflict, with upsetting emotions? How do we navigate them when I'm having them? How do I communicate my perspectives, my emotions, my wants or my needs to someone else? How do I navigate the moments where what I'm hearing back isn't agreement, right? Where they disagree with my perspective, where they're not feeling the same way that I am, where they want or need something different to happen than I want or need to happen in this next moment, right? And then how do I navigate conflict from someone else? How is it for me to hear from someone else that I've upset them, or a different perspective on their experience of me, or again, different wants and needs in any given moment? And that is so pivotal because, again, few of us have the tools, have had modeled to us how to be at odds with someone in a calm, grounded way. And again, I'm probably not surprised to hear that it really is a function too of our nervous system's ability to hear a different perspective. First and foremost, I should say, to tune into what our perspective is, what our thoughts and what our feelings are, what I noticed for myself, because I spent so much time disconnected. I woke up, if you will, in my 30s, and I didn't really know what I thought about most things. I didn't really know how I felt about really anything because I wasn't connected to my feelings. If you would have asked me what my wants and what my needs are, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you what I wanted to eat for dinner, let alone, right, these deeper wants and needs. So really beginning to, and that was all a function of how disconnected I was because of how I had to adapt, not having that attunement I needed. It's not that I didn't have wants and needs and perspectives and feelings. I have all of that. We all do. I was just so disconnected from them. So all of the journey that I've shared already and reconnecting with my body allowed me to get clearer on that. And then it became a matter of, okay, how can I communicate that to someone else, especially that I'm navigating, building a relationship with? And what happens in those moments when I hear a perspective that I don't like, when someone shares feelings with me that I'm not having in any given moment, right? Do I minimize and invalidate them? Do I fly off the handle because I don't like what they said? What happens in the moments where I want or need something, or I hear they want or need something different than what I thought was going to happen or what I expected to happen in that next moment? So those are things to explore for ourselves, right? To ask our potential partners, like, well, how was conflict navigated in your home? What did it look like? Were there explosive arguments? Was it even talked about at all? And then, of course, you can observe, right? You can hear what's being said to you, and then you can observe in those moments of disagreement what it is that happens, because it's not about avoiding conflict, I think, as some of us think. For decades, I thought conflict meant that it was a bad relationship, that it wasn't the person for me, because I didn't learn and I didn't see two individuals navigating the natural disagreement and conflict that's always going to happen when you're building a life and creating a life and then finally living a life with someone who's different than you, right? So understanding again that conflict is natural. It's not able to be avoided. And what's more important is, of course, minimizing the moments where we become hurtful to another person, right? Emotionally or physically, in those moments of heated reactivity. Though what's most important on the other side of that is, can you come back? Can you have those grounded moments of communication, conversation, where you try to understand what their perspective was or what they were feeling, even if it's not naturally something you understand? It's those moments of repair. So any questioning you can do in terms of conflict and what had happened in their past, any observation that you can do around your own past relationship with conflict and how you continue to navigate conflict, I think for me is such a foundationally important piece of building a relationship.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
That is
Michael?
really good. I was going to make a sarcastic joke. Guys are going to love these questions, but I'll hold off. I'll hold off on making that joke.
You just made it.
Guys are going to love me. Oh, whoops. Oh my God. Andy, cut it. Cut
that part.
But no, that was really nice. I shouldn't have broken it up with a
good.
terribly timed joke. All right. And that was all awesome. It's been such a pleasure having you on, like really a different type of episode, learning a lot. And I know Jenny was really excited about this for a long time. So it's been a pleasure for sure. Yeah, she really was.
Yeah, I was shy for reaching out. I was like, I want to reach out to Dr. Nicole LePera, but I don't know. I gotta wait. And I didn't know if you would respond. And yeah, so I'm just glad that we made it happen. So yeah, thank you for your time and thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I was super excited when I saw your request. So I was just as jazzed as you are when I saw it in my upcoming schedule last week. I was just as excited. So thank you both for this opportunity, not only to have a conversation with you, but to connect with your community.
That is amazing. Why don't we fire up our Gas Wars segment? Probably not familiar with it, but Yeah. Okay. I'll introduce it this time since I started.
for it.
So guess what we're gonna do? We're each gonna ask 5 rapid fire questions, one after the other. I'll go first, and Jen will go, then I'll go, and just answer whatever you want to do. They're fun, not really about NFTs or whatever. So we just have a good time. Ready to roll?
Let's do it.
All right. My first one is: what is your favorite travel destination?
Somewhere in the mountains.
Ooh,
A1.
rancher.
Yeah. Okay. Mountain vacation. Yeah.
Mountain vacation.
What is one of your pet peeves?
Pet peeve. Good question. What is one of my pet peeves? I'm sure I have many. I can't think of any now. Clutter.
Oh, clutter.
Who is your favorite artist?
I know these are supposed to be fast.
You're fine. No, it goes how it goes. It's not. It doesn't have to.
Well,
be.
sometimes it's questions that you never think about, and you're like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, I've not.
Sometimes we'll stop and have a conversation about an answer. It's all good, however it goes.
Sometimes we skip them. We're like, "Okay, next one."
I think Banksy's pretty cool. I think Dolly's pretty cool.
Dolly was mine. If I had to pick one overall, it'd be Dolly.
That's surrealism. I think that's real cool.
Yep.
My favorite artist recently, not recently, but I found out that they literally stopped making art like 2 years ago. And I just ordered some prints from them. And then like weeks ago, and I'm like, oh no, I need to figure out how to get my money back because they're just like not even around anymore. I'm like, no. Anyway. Okay, my question. Okay, what was your first job?
I worked very briefly at Modell's Sporting Goods.
Okay.
Yep.
You know that, Michael?
At the Roosevelt Mall?
At the Roosevelt Mall.
Let's go.
That's right.
Let's go.
For about 2 weeks because my sister knew one of the buyers. And for a while, my job was softball because I played softball. I traveled. I did all the things. And then I think I was probably around 18 where they're like, you're going to get a job now. And so my sister came in clutch and got me a job at Modell Sporting Goods. And I think it was for like 2 months before I went to college.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
What is the best thing you ever ate?
The best thing I ever eat generally is pizza of all kind.
Where's the best pizza? I'll do a secondary. Where's the best pizza?
I still have in my heart from Macamanco's on the boardwalk because
sure.
I still try and replicate that wherever I am.
Wildwood, New Jersey.
Wildwood Boardwalk.
Yep.
I was a Wildwood girl. That's right.
What was your most unique pet?
Not so unique though. Hermit crabs.
Ooh, I had those too.
Yes.
We have one.
I had
right
a hermit
now.
crab that was bionic.
We have one right
forever.
now. Yeah.
Really? Jeez. Mine died pretty quick.
One of mine just stuck around. I remember I was prepped for it, possibly not to, but one of them was.
Oh.
His name was MB for Myrtle Beach, where we went on vacation.
MB, that's cute.
That's hilarious. What is a guilty pleasure TV show that you watch?
Oh God, any reality TV. Is
It's
a guilty, but we are deep into the like 90 Day Fiance genre, which has so many different offshoots now. I get my little interpersonal observation, and it's cool to watch them in other countries.
It's research.
Yes.
It's important. I need to watch this. What do you typically eat for breakfast?
Eggs.
Simple.
Yeah.
Nice. Just like fried eggs, straight up fried eggs.
Just fried eggs.
In butter, avocado oil.
Now recently it's been a little olive oil.
Olive oil, okay.
It could be butter just as easily. I find the olive oil doesn't create a stick situation as much as butter does.
No doubt. All right. My final one is what is the best concert you've ever been to?
Red Hot Chili Peppers it was for my 21st birthday. It was literally the day after I turned 21. So the whole turning 21 at that concert.
Californication too. That was when they were at their peak.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Love it.
All right. My last question is, what is your dream country to visit?
I want to go so many places. I'm dying to get to Iceland.
Ooh, I want
to do the Northern Lights.
Iceland is amazing. I'm going to give you a place to check out since you love the mountains. San Carlos de Bariloche in Patagonia, Argentina is one of the most amazing cities I've ever been to. So you go down to Buenos Aires and it's a quick flight. It's in Patagonia. It's It's a beautiful city. Like it's like Swiss architecture.
Oh yeah.
They have the most amazing food, the most amazing chocolate. They're known for all their Swiss chocolates. A lot of Swiss people have moved there. Oh, they're known for the most artisanal chocolates that you'll find. But also everywhere you go, there's a different lake, a different mountain, a different color. The outdoors activities are endless. The lakes don't have houses around them. They're just beautiful and pristine. You take boats everywhere. It's the coolest place. San Carlos de Bariloche, Argentina. Check it out. It's a sister city to Aspen. Yes, it's a sister city to Aspen, Colorado. So it's like it's a little bit of that vibe. It's definitely the mountain. Like it's like if you're in the city, you're right there. There's like high end stuff. It's very nice, but it's also just like it's just gorgeous. Good. I recommend that place to anybody. We went all through Argentina, and I fell in love with that town, San Carlos de Bariloche.
San Carlos de Bariloche.
Yep.
Here I come.
Yep.
Next on the bucket list.
That's right. It already is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, when you said mountains, and then Jenny asked where your dream is, so.
Well, you said lakes too. I mean, mountains and lakes. I go back and forth with. So a lake next to a mountain, and that's it.
There's a road. It's called it's like the Calle de Siete Lagos or whatever, like the Road of Seven Lakes, and it's like a big loop, and you go out of town, and it's just like there's stop offs, the views. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. I mean, it's the Rocky Mountains on steroids, and then there's no people. So it's like
even better.
Right, exactly.
And Michael's been to like 100 countries. So
I've been like 50. I've been like 50.
Okay,
50.
That's cool.
But a lot.
Well, thank
Iceland
you.
as well. Iceland's amazing as well. Iceland's amazing, but Iceland is very touristy. Like you're mostly going to be on the tourist trail, and it's cool. But there's a tourist trail, and there's beautiful things to do. And like to go into the center, into the mountains, that's like a real ordeal. You can't even do that a lot of times a year because of the weather. But Iceland is still awesome. But like Argentina and Patagonia for the mountains, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I gotta go there now.
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Nicole LePera, any last minute thoughts you want to share before we end this?
I just want to thank everyone. Thank you both again, of course, and thank everyone for listening to this conversation. I am super inspired by anyone who's interested in these topics, and like I shared earlier, in terms of really shifting. I think the future for all of us. I think it gives me so much hope to hear, even again, that a community such as yours is interested in having a conversation about these. I think it's really just symbolic of where we're all at and the shifts that we're all willing to make, and the possibilities, coupling that with the beautiful technology that we now have at our hands. I'm just so hopeful for the future.
Beautiful. All right. And with that said, thank you all for tuning into this episode of the NFT Catcher podcast. If you want to follow her on Twitter, you can follow her at The Holistic Psych. We'll link it in the show notes below. You can also buy her books on Amazon or probably any bookstore as well. Or you can check out howtobetheloveyouseek.com for her newest book. And we will catch you all in the next episode. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the NFT Catcher podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about the exciting world of NFTs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really love what you're hearing, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. If you want to stay up to date with the latest news and insights from the NFT space, be sure to follow us on all the socials at NFT Catcher Pod. You can follow Jennifer at Jennifer_pseudo and Michael at NFTicket. I'm your producer, Andy, and I'm at AJC254. Our theme song's by It's Just Los. We always appreciate your feedback and support, which helps us reach more people and bring you informative and engaging content about NFTs. We look forward to bringing you more great NFT content in future episodes. Thanks for listening. Peace.